The morning mist clung to the low streets of Ouagadougou like a question waiting for an answer. Within the walls of the presidential compound, everything was still. Too still. It was the kind of silence that didn't comfort, it listened. President Ibrahim Traoré stood barefoot on the marble of his private courtyard, the rough red earth just beyond. He often began his mornings like this, grounding himself before the weight of governance pulled him behind desks and documents. The guards kept their distance. He preferred it that way. No salutes, no routine. Just him, the land, and the hum of his thoughts. He carried a wooden tray, 2 ceramic cups, a chipped kettle, and a tin of fresh mint leaves. Tea. His grandfather had brewed it the same way in the village outside Bobo-Dioulasso, a ritual handed down like a prayer. This was supposed to be a calm day. The briefings had spoken of progress. Literacy had increased. Rural cooperatives were running themselves. Women were leading local councils. The kind of change that never made headlines but slowly rewrote destinies. Yet, even as the reports painted hope, the president's mind did not rest. Something had shifted. The palace had developed a new kind of quiet, one not born of discipline, but anticipation. Conversations slowed when he entered a room. Officers smiled too wide. Doors closed a second too late. It wasn't overt. But it was enough. Power taught you how to hear what wasn't said. A rustle behind him broke his thought. Mr. President. The voice was soft, urgent, female. He turned. Marie. She wasn't dressed like an advisor this morning. No blazer, no high heels. Just a simple scarf tied loosely around her neck and sandals too dusty for an office. That alone was a message. She stepped forward quickly and handed him a sealed folder. It wasn't protocol. But then, betrayal never is. They've moved up the timeline, she whispered. It's today. He said nothing. Captain Sari has confirmed it through backchannel. There's a shift change at noon, routine on paper, but Sari said the team assigned to secure the south wing aren't regulars. They're his replacements. He took the folder. Flipped it open. Names. Faces. Timings. Maps of the palace. Code phrases embedded in communication logs. It was clean. Too clean. Not the work of amateurs. He breathed deeply through his nose. How many are in it? He asked. We've verified 6, Marie replied, eyes flickering. But the lead, it's someone close. Of course it was. Who? He asked, still not looking up. She hesitated. Captain Mamadou Hugo. His fingers froze over the page. Then, slowly, he closed the file. Hugo. The name thudded against his chest like a stone thrown into a still pool. Mamadou had been one of the first to join him when the old regime fell. One of the loudest voices for reform. The one who, in a different life, would have had a cabinet seat. He didn't ask why. He already knew. Ambition, fear, whispers of foreign offers and familiar ghosts. Power always came with shadows. And when you lit a torch for your people, the moths came too. Does he know we know? Ibrahim asked. Marie shook her head. No. He thinks the palace is still asleep. Good. Let it stay that way. He turned and walked toward the eastern veranda, his tea tray still in hand. The sun was rising now, cutting through the mist like a slow blade. Behind him, Marie followed. You need to leave, at least for today, she said quickly. We can neutralize the team quietly. Handle it internally. But you shouldn't be here when. No. His voice was calm. Flat. I will not run from my own house. And I will not greet betrayal with fear. Marie stopped. Then what will you do? He looked down at the 2 cups of tea. Invite him, he said. Marie stared. You want to sit with him? She asked. Yes. And if he accepts, and walks in with a pistol? Then he'll find a man with tea. Not a weapon. Mr. President. He turned to her. The wind picked up, lifting the hem of his tunic slightly. I was not raised to fear difficult conversations, he said. If he has already made up his mind to kill, then no speech will change it. But if there is doubt, even a crack, then the only way to reach it is by giving him the space to speak. Marie swallowed. This isn't policy. This is personal. Of course it is, Ibrahim said. Power is always personal. But we forget that. He stepped past her, toward the narrow hall that led to the private reception room. Have a message sent to him discreetly. One sentence only. Marie hesitated. What sentence? He looked back, eyes clear and unmoved. Tell him the tea is ready. Captain Mamadou Hugo read the message twice. No signature. No demand. Just 7 words whispered through a courier who vanished into the courtyard shadows. Tell him the tea is ready. It was the kind of line that didn't make sense on paper, but stopped your pulse in the real world. He stood alone in the southern barracks corridor, boots tight, uniform immaculate. His holster was heavier than usual. Not from weight but consequence. His men, his trusted 6, were already in place. They thought the president would be in transit by now, halfway to the regional agriculture center. Vulnerable. Predictable. Except he wasn't. The courier's message changed everything. The president knew. And worse, he was waiting. Mamadou didn't speak. Not to the guard who passed. Not to the aide who saluted. He only turned and walked toward the inner wing, where power lived and answers waited. He remembered the first time he met Ibrahim Traoré. Years ago. Dust in their mouths. Anger in their lungs. The air sharp with tear gas and rebellion. Traoré had looked like no leader Mamadou had ever known, skin dark from the sun, voice low and patient, even as the old regime's vehicles burned behind them. They had fought side by side. They had taken an oath together, not of loyalty to a man, but to a nation waiting to be born. So what had changed? Mamadou couldn't name it. Maybe it was the foreign advisors, smiling too wide. Maybe it was the new budget proposals that shifted military power to civil committees. Maybe it was the unease that came when reforms moved too fast, before the old guards were ready to die. Or maybe, he thought bitterly, it was envy. He had stood behind Ibrahim for so long that he forgot what it felt like to stand beside him. He reached the private reception chamber. 2 unarmed guards stood at the door. Not his men. Traoré's personal staff. They opened the door without a word. Inside, the light was soft. A kettle steamed gently between 2 cups. Ibrahim sat cross-legged at a low table, sleeves rolled to the elbow, his eyes calm as lake water. Mamadou stood just inside the threshold. He didn't reach for his weapon. Not yet. Tea? The president asked. No sarcasm. No judgment. Just a genuine offer, like nothing in the last 72 hours had happened. Mamadou's fingers twitched. You knew, he said. It wasn't a question. I suspected, Ibrahim replied. Then I confirmed. Mamadou didn't move. You didn't call security. You didn't flee. You didn't confront me. No, Ibrahim said. I invited you. Why? The president poured mint tea into both cups. Because I want to understand. Mamadou stepped forward, 1 foot at a time, like a man crossing into fire. You should have had me arrested. Perhaps, Ibrahim said. But arrest stops action. It doesn't explain it. Mamadou sat slowly across from him. The steam curled between them. Warm. Gentle. Human. There are whispers about you, Mamadou said. That you're too idealistic. Too soft. That you'd rather pour tea than pull a trigger. Ibrahim met his gaze. And are they wrong? Mamadou didn't answer. Silence thickened, only broken by the faint chirp of birds outside the high windows. You changed, Ibrahim, he said finally. You started listening more to teachers and farmers than to the commanders who put you in that chair. I did, Traoré replied. You gave away too much control. Let civilians run the budgets. Let women lead the councils. Half the old guard says you're killing the very spine of this country. And what do you say? Ibrahim asked. Mamadou stared into the tea. His reflection wavered in the dark surface. I say I don't know anymore. The admission cracked the silence open like an egg. I believe in strength, Mamadou continued. I was trained to maintain it. I watched regimes crumble because of softness, because they didn't strike back fast enough. You confuse control with strength, Ibrahim said. They are not the same. Mamadou's fingers tightened around the cup. Maybe. But at least control doesn't get people killed. Control also never builds trust, Ibrahim replied. And this country has been ruled by fear for too long. Fear of rebels. Fear of famine. Fear of ourselves. He took a sip of tea. Slowly. Deliberately. Mamadou did the same. It tasted like memory. I didn't plan this alone, he said after a moment. I know. I wasn't going to pull the trigger. I know that too. Then what now? Mamadou asked, finally. Ibrahim leaned forward, setting his cup down. You are still the man who stood beside me when we had nothing but fire and an idea. I believe that man is not gone. Just lost. Mamadou looked up sharply. You're offering me a chance. No, Ibrahim said. I'm offering you a choice. And if I say no? Then you walk out that door, and I pretend this conversation never happened. There are no threats here. Only tea. The silence was louder now than any shout could have been. Finally, Mamadou placed both palms on the table. Firm. Grounded. I came here to end something, he said. And now I realize it's something in myself. The words came out lower than he expected. I don't know if I deserve forgiveness. Forgiveness isn't earned, Ibrahim said gently. It's offered. Outside, the sun had risen fully. The palace began to stir. Radios clicked on. Footsteps echoed. Another day in a fragile country trying to grow. But inside that room, something had already changed. A coup had died. Quietly. Without smoke. Without sound. Only tea. And two men who remembered who they used to be. The sun was high when the assembly was called. Every senior officer, minister, and regional commander in the nation received the same unexpected directive: report to the Grand Hall at 1600 hours. No exceptions. The message was unsigned, but it didn't need to be. Everyone knew whose voice it carried. The Grand Hall, usually reserved for state dinners and visiting dignitaries, had never felt heavier. Its marble floor gleamed. Its towering windows breathed light into the room, but the air was dense with unspoken fears. Men who once plotted inside rooms now stood shoulder to shoulder, caught in the very thing they thought they controlled. Captain Mamadou Hugo entered through the southern doors, alone. No gun. No decorations on his chest. Only the plain officer's tunic and a silence so deliberate it turned heads. He stood in the second row, behind a man he once outranked. No one spoke to him. Not yet. But every eye that landed on him whispered what lips did not. He shouldn't be here. He's the one who. Why hasn't he been? Then the door at the far end opened, and all thought dissolved. Ibrahim Traoré walked in with no guards, no fanfare, no folder in his hand. Just a rolled-sleeve shirt, a steady gait, and a gaze that saw straight through every man in that room. He stepped onto the small dais. No microphone. No teleprompter. Just presence. He waited until the shuffle of boots stilled and the echo of tension flattened. Then he spoke. Gentlemen. A pause. We stand here today not because I demand answers, but because I offer questions. Murmurs rippled, then ceased. I have been told, he continued, voice calm, that my leadership has made some of you uneasy. He let the word hang. I've heard that shifting power to local communities is dangerous. That giving farmers land and women authority is reckless. That civil control over military budgeting is naive. That reform is too fast. He looked out over the room, not accusing, but watching. I don't deny your discomfort. I welcome it. A few heads turned, confused. Because discomfort, he said, means something is changing. He took a slow step forward. I am not here to lecture. I am here to listen. But not in secret halls, not in hushed meetings behind closed doors. Another step. I want you to say it. Here. Now. If any of you believe my vision is endangering this country, speak. The room went still. All but one. A chair scraped slowly backward. Mamadou Hugo stood. He didn't raise his voice. Mr. President, he said, may I? Ibrahim nodded once. Mamadou turned to the room. I once believed our strength lay in order. In control. In enforcing peace, not building it. He looked down, then back up. I was wrong. Gasps rustled like leaves. I let fear into my heart. I listened to the old guard. To men who told me dreams were dangerous. He looked to Ibrahim now, not as a subordinate, not as a rival, but as a man. I came here to destroy what we were building. And instead, I found something I didn't expect. He took a breath. Clarity. Somewhere, a breath was held. A fist unclenched. I don't know if I deserve to be here, Mamadou said, but I stand before you because I believe this country has a chance. A real one. If we lead with courage, not chains. He stepped back into his place. No applause followed. Just stillness. Then Ibrahim stepped forward. There will be no purge today, he said quietly. No trials. No disgrace. He looked around the hall. I know some of you still doubt me. I know some of you think I'm young, or soft, or dreaming too loudly. He smiled faintly. I accept that. What I cannot accept is silence in place of integrity. His voice rose, not loud, but firm. If you disagree with me, speak. If you fear the future, name it. But if you conspire in shadows, if you choose bullets over dialogue, you do not just betray me, you betray yourselves. He let the silence hold. Then added, quieter again. But if you're willing to walk forward, even uncertain, even bruised, I will walk with you. The stillness cracked. A general to the left nodded, almost imperceptibly. A major lowered his gaze in shame. A colonel exhaled as though releasing a weight. No one clapped. There were no grandstanding cheers. But the coup, real or imagined, died there. Buried not under punishment, but under truth. Ibrahim looked once more at Mamadou. Their eyes met. Nothing needed to be said. And then he turned and walked out of the hall. The door shut gently behind him. He had not crushed his enemies. He had not exiled a traitor. He had listened. And for the first time in years, the military stood, not in obedience, but in understanding. The room was small. Not presidential. Not symbolic. Just a modest space tucked behind the courtyard library, once a storeroom, now converted into a quiet retreat Ibrahim Traoré used when the noise of governance grew too loud. He sat alone, fingers resting on a folded handkerchief. A second cup of tea steamed gently across from him. No guards. No advisors. Just patience. The door opened. Captain Mamadou Hugo stepped in and closed it behind him. His posture was no longer defiant but not collapsed either. Somewhere between a soldier and a man stripped bare. He sat. They said nothing for a while. Only the quiet rustle of wind passed through the open slats in the window, carrying with it the scent of mango trees and damp stone. Mamadou spoke first. You didn't have to spare me. Ibrahim looked at him, eyes steady. I didn't spare you. I trusted you. A bitter laugh almost escaped, but Mamadou swallowed it. You trusted someone who plotted your removal. I trusted the part of you that didn't want to. Silence again. Mamadou's fingers hovered near the tea but didn't touch it. His eyes were far away, searching through memories, maybe, or regrets. I wanted to believe in your vision, he said. At first, I did. Ibrahim waited. But then everything started moving too fast. The reforms, the international spotlight, the youth rallies, the decentralization. It felt like we were leaving our past behind too quickly. Like we were erasing the old without understanding why it existed. Ibrahim nodded slowly. You're not wrong. Mamadou blinked. I'm not. No, Ibrahim said. The old structures were built for survival. That's why they're hard to tear down. They made sense in chaos. But now we're trying to build something for peace, and that takes more than force. It takes faith. Mamadou's voice dropped. But faith doesn't protect borders. Neither does fear, Ibrahim replied. It just delays the fall. The captain finally reached for the cup, hands steady this time. I let myself be used, he said. I told myself it was strategy, patriotism. But really, I was angry. I watched you rise, and a part of me resented it. He looked Ibrahim in the eye for the first time since sitting. I wanted your chair. And when I couldn't have it, I convinced myself you didn't deserve it. There it was. The truth. Naked. Unflinching. Ibrahim didn't flinch either. I knew. Mamadou blinked. I saw it in your eyes 2 months ago, Ibrahim said. During the decentralization vote. You clapped late. Smiled too easily. You looked at me like a man measuring a wall he might have to tear down. Then why didn't you remove me? Because removing you would have proved you right. Mamadou looked down. Ibrahim, he said quietly, I almost betrayed the one man who never betrayed me. Ibrahim's voice softened. And now you're sitting here. Telling me that. It's not enough. No, Ibrahim agreed. But it's a beginning. Mamadou reached into his jacket. I wrote this before the assembly, he said. Didn't know if I'd walk out alive. It's a full confession. The names, the plans, the network. He placed a thick folded paper on the table. Ibrahim didn't touch it. I'm not here to beg, Mamadou said. And I'm not asking for reinstatement. Just, let me serve. However you see fit. Even quietly. Ibrahim finally leaned back. I don't want obedience, he said. I want belief. Mamadou hesitated. Do you think that can come back? I think it already has, Ibrahim said. Or you wouldn't be here. The wind lifted the edge of the confession paper, fluttering it like a heartbeat. Mamadou stared at it. I buried my pride the moment I stepped into that hall, he said. But I didn't expect mercy. Not like this. Ibrahim offered the faintest smile. Mercy isn't weakness, he said. It's choosing to plant something instead of burn it. The tea had cooled. Mamadou lifted his cup again and drank, slowly, this time. Thank you, he said. Ibrahim looked at him, not as a commander, not as a threat, but as a man. No, he said quietly. Thank you for returning. Outside, the bells from the main tower rang once. Time moved forward. And for the first time in days, so did trust. The courtyard was overflowing. Not with soldiers or suits, but with people, gardeners in work-stained trousers, janitors who had swept the palace steps since before the revolution, schoolteachers, market vendors, volunteers, and children wearing mismatched shoes but holding flags with both hands. There was no formal invitation. The news had simply spread, the president will speak. By midday, the space between the palace colonnades had become a living mosaic. Rows of plastic chairs lined the perimeter, but most stood shoulder to shoulder. The air was thick with anticipation and the scent of hot dust. Not fear. Not celebration. Something in between. Captain Mamadou Hugo arrived quietly. No medals. No entourage. Just a simple officer's tunic and a deeply bowed head. Some recognized him. Many did not. But none looked away. He found a place near the second row. He did not try to hide. He did not try to lead. He simply waited. The murmuring fell to silence when President Ibrahim Traoré emerged. No podium. No sound system. Just a stone platform and a single microphone, one that crackled softly as he adjusted it with bare hands. He wore white linen, sleeves rolled up, and the calm of a man who had made peace not just with his people, but with his choices. Brothers, he began, sisters. Family. His voice was quiet. Still, the crowd leaned in. Yesterday, something happened. Not a coup. Not a riot. Something harder to name. One of our own, a son of this country, nearly made a choice that could have torn us apart. Whispers flickered through the gathering like wind in leaves. But I am not here to speak of betrayal, he continued. I am here to speak of what comes after. He paused. Scanned the crowd, not with scrutiny, but with care. In every family, there are mistakes. In every family, fear creeps in. But what defines us is not our failures, it is how we choose to heal. He lifted his gaze higher now, voice carrying more weight. I stand before you not as a perfect leader. Not as a savior. But as a servant of a vision that belongs to all of us. A Burkina Faso built not on silence or submission, but dialogue. On listening. On rebuilding. He extended his hand to the side, unexpectedly. Mamadou, he said. The crowd froze. Mamadou Hugo stiffened. Captain, Ibrahim repeated gently, stand with me. It wasn't a command. It was an invitation. Mamadou moved. He walked slowly to the platform, every step felt like an eternity. He passed a woman clutching a baby, a young boy with a wooden school slate, a man missing 2 fingers from an old war. Their eyes didn't hate. They questioned. And yet, they allowed. When he reached the platform, Ibrahim didn't move away. He didn't gesture behind. He simply placed a hand on Mamadou's shoulder and looked out again. This man, he said, was once prepared to remove me from power. Gasps, this time sharp and real. He was misled. He was afraid. But he was not evil. A longer silence. Because when I offered him a cup of tea, he chose conversation over conflict. The words hung in the dry air like shade. That, Ibrahim said, is not weakness. That is courage. He turned to Mamadou. And your return to this vision makes it stronger. Mamadou cleared his throat. I have no speech, he said quietly. Only this, I was wrong. And I will spend what remains of my life building what I once tried to break. A young girl in the crowd clapped, once. Then again. Then others joined. Not a roar. Not a stadium. But a ripple. And it was enough. Ibrahim raised his hand for silence. I do not ask you to forget, he said. But I ask you to believe. Not just in me. In each other. That even after the darkest hour, light is still possible. He stepped forward. Burkina Faso, he said, is not a border. It is not a flag. It is the people who carry this country every day without recognition or reward. You are the nation. And I, like Mamadou, am just one of you. The applause grew now. No hysteria. No chants. Just hands meeting hands in a rhythm of approval. In the crowd, Marie stood quietly beside Fatou, her daughter, both smiling with the kind of pride that only knows effort and sacrifice. Not one of them clapped louder than the rest. Because this wasn't theater. This was healing. Later, under the shade of the palace's oldest neem tree, Ibrahim and Mamadou sat with 2 more cups of tea between them. The same chipped kettle. The same mint leaves. The same ritual that had once saved a nation. "You know," Mamadou said, half smiling, "this still doesn't feel deserved." "It isn't," Ibrahim replied. "But it is offered." Mamadou exhaled. "Will they ever forget?" "I hope not," Ibrahim said. "Some stories must remain as warnings." He took a sip. "And some as seeds." The sun began to dip behind the red rooftops of Ouagadougou. The calls of vendors drifted through the city streets. A mother bathed her son with a bucket and a smile. Somewhere, a new school prepared for its opening day. The palace had returned to quiet. But the silence now was not heavy. It was full. Because in a world begging for punishment, forgiveness had taken root. And in the hands of a young president, it had been poured. 1 cup at a time.